सबको नमस्ते। 2024 विकसित भारत की ओर इस ऑनलाइन परिचर्चा श्रृंखला में आप सभी दोस्तों का हार्दिक अभिनंदन है, तहे दिल से स्वागत है। दोस्तों, 2024 के चुनाव की सरगर्मियां चारों ओर दिखाई देने लगी हैं। एक ओर मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार है, जो अपनी उपलब्धियों के बल पर पूरे आत्मविश्वास के साथ जनता के सम्मुख जाने को तैयार है। दूसरी ओर कांग्रेस समेत तमाम विपक्षी पार्टियां हैं, जो एन केन प्रकारेण सत्ता हासिल करना चाहती हैं। इन सब के बीच जनता है, हम और आप हैं, जो चाहते हैं कि भारत के विकास के हर पहलू का सूक्ष्म मूल्यांकन किया जाए। 2024 विकसित भारत की ओर ऑनलाइन परिचर्चा श्रृंखला इसी उद्देश्य की पूर्ति के लिए किया गया है, जहां हम विषय विशेषज्ञों द्वारा भारत के विकास के हर पहलू, चाहे वह इकोनॉमी हो, एजुकेशन हो, हेल्थ हो, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर हो, अर्बनाइजेशन हो, ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस हो, फॉरेन डायरेक्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट हो, यूथ हो, स्पोर्ट्स हो, कहने का तात्पर्य कि हर पहलू का सूक्ष्म विवेचन विश्लेषण विषय विशेषज्ञों द्वारा यहां पर होगा और अंत में प्रतिभागियों के प्रश्नों का उत्तर लिया जाएगा। आज इसी श्रृंखला की पहली कड़ी है भारत इमर्जिंग ऑन द ग्लोबल स्टेज, और आज के इस विषय पे हमारे विषय विशेषज्ञ हैं, स्पीकर्स हैं, न्यूज 18 तथा फर्स्ट पोस्ट के ओपिनियन एडिटर श्री उत्पल कुमार जी। मैं आपका अभिनंदन करती हूँ, स्वागत करती हूँ। दोस्तों, पिछले 8-9 वर्षों में वैश्विक परिदृश्य पर भारत की छवि में जो श्री वृद्धि हुई है, भारतीयों का जो गौरव बढ़ा है, उसका तो कहना ही क्या है। इसने हम सभी 140 करोड़ भारतीयों का सिर गर्व से ऊंचा कर दिया है। इस संदर्भ में मेरी स्वरचित कुछ पंक्तियां हैं जो शेयर करना चाहती हूं। देखता है विश्व विस्मय से भारत की ओर देखो, देखता है विश्व विस्मय से भारत की ओर देखो, पूछता है उच्च गौरव के चतुर्दिक फैलने का, पूछता है उच्च गौरव के चतुर्दिक फैलने का, संस्कृति अर्थव्यवस्था के उत्कर्ष का अनुपम समय, संस्कृति अर्थव्यवस्था के उत्कर्ष का अनुपम समय, हर कदम अब बढ़ चले हैं, हर कदम अब बढ़ चले हैं, धन्य भारत, धन्य भारत। परिचर्चा को आगे बढ़ाते हुए मैं रिसर्च स्कॉलर आकांक्षा अग्रहरी से अनुरोध करती हूँ कि हमारे आज के पहले स्पीकर का संक्षिप्त परिचय कराएं।
Utpal Kumar sir, and sir is an opinion editor at News 18, and he is an opinion editor at Firstpost. He has 2 decades journalistic experience and worked with several media houses like Hindustan Times, India Today, etc. Sir has written many articles, like more than 100 articles, with his a strong nationalist voice, and his first book, Bharat Rising, Dharma, Democracy, Diplomacy, is releasing in January 2K24. So, Sir Utpal Kumar sir, I'd like to invite you.
Thank you, Akansha. Thank you, Punamji. And thanks for inviting me. It's a privilege to talk about the emergence of Bharat on the global stage. Arjunji talked in detail about the state of India's economy. So that's where, the seminar, the event like the one which is, right now is important, because, we need to set the narrative stage. And the current government, the Modi government, Modi dispensation, has also been a victim of this same narrative setting by left liberal, ecosystem. We remember, so many headlines being put in, like divider in chief, fascist, authoritarian. These are the terms being used for the prime minister. And And let's not be political here. I'm talking about the prime minister of the country, who should be beyond the political distance. Talking to the main point of this discussion, uh, I believe that the Modi government has worked remarkably well on both fronts: governance, defense, economy, and diplomacy. Uh, uh, like diplomacy is still being talked about much. Governance, there is a bit of talk, but defense and economy all go down. And we hardly talk about that. And I'm thankful that Arjun we talked about that in detail. In governance, when we talk about governance, it's not just the government is not just strengthen internal security, but it also initiated the process of aligning the modes of governance with the civilizational ethos of the country. The Modi government has also begun the honest task of initiating the process of freeing the country from the vice-like grip of Nehruvian secularism, which is nothing but minoritism of the worst order. So dharma is kind of back. Dharma is a very complicated term to explain, but yeah, dharma is back and in the work of governance. Though I must say that it's a kind of a work in progress. Similarly, Modi government's achievements, uh, vis-a-vis defense and economy, are enormous. In fact, it is the first government in 2 decades that has made significant strides forward in the field of defense, and it can take great pride in the fact that it's still not being tainted. Also, the sector is doing well in pushing and promoting Make in India defense stuff. In economy, Arjun ji talked in detail about the state of the economy and how India has moved from being in the 10th largest economy a decade back to fifth right now. And by the end of 2020, it will be in the third position, just after US and China. New India is currently the fastest growing economy in the world, and as I am recently said, it is the bright spot for global economic revival. So I will therefore, focus primarily on the foreign affairs and diplomacy, an area in which the Modi person has done made major inroads. Indian diplomacy under the current dispensation has been quite successful in seamlessly transforming the country from being a soft power to uh, to an aspiring hard power. It is no longer shy in taking the bull by the horn as it did with China uh, when the People's Liberation Army tried to change the status quo at the line of in Eastern Ladakh in May 2022. It also didn't shy from exposing the Western hypocrisy over Ukraine and stood its ground despite tremendous pressure points created in the US and by the US and its European allies. New India has also rewritten the rules of engagement with Pakistan through its Uri and Balakot operations in 2016 and 2019 respectively. Now, the accountability for a terror activity operating on Pakistani soil lies squarely with Pakistani rulers. The inner leadership in the past can be accused of pampering and patronizing Pakistan in the hope of improving ties. The Modi dispensation, by doing away with this kind of cosmic diplomacy, a term, Professor M.D. Nalpat, who is a veteran journalist, and he's written in his recent book, has helped India come out of this needless regional tangles and instead focus on bigger gains and larger geostrategic pictures. Indian diplomacy under the Modi dispensation is slowly shedding the much influenced Panipat syndrome, a term actually originally coined by the late military strategist Jasmeet Singh in one of his articles in 1998. The change is already perceptible as India is consciously trying not to look the other way when threats come knocking on its doors. Not only has it begun to take the challenge head on, but it can also be seen coming up with a long term futuristic worldview in matters of diplomacy geostrategy. However, I'll add that it's still a work in progress and we have a long way to go. One gets a sense of an assertive Indian diplomacy in the manner in which the country has organized G20, Quad, and SCO summits almost simultaneously early this year. It is a tribute to New India's clarity of mind and growing confidence in its own ability in shaping itself and the world without being apologetic and underconfident about it. The clarity of New India's diplomacy explains how we are today, the leader of global South, and yet this has not come in the way of being close to the US-led Western order. The maturity of Indian diplomacy can also be seen in the fact that while India sees its future in the Western democratic order, and yet it doesn't disown its traditional friends like Russia. The best thing about today's India is that it works well under the crisis. Actually, it gets the best out at that time, and COVID-19 is a perfect example of that. So many obituaries, were written at that time. We published so many in our newspapers and magazines at that time. I saw that so many Western intellectuals I think that came up with cataclysmic scenarios surrounding India. But if there was one country which came out shining through the pandemic, it was India. India not just helped itself, but also so many other countries, especially its neighbors, with its Made in India vaccine. Another example of India transforming itself into a global power is the manner in which it now goes about saving its city spots in distress areas, in the crisis-prone areas, in war-torn regions. Yemen, we remember Yemen, Sudan, Afghanistan, Ukraine. The list is endless. And there were times when we used to see, and wonder when will India stop, abandoning its citizens and act the way Americans used to do. So yeah, we are doing that. It's again a work in progress, but yeah, a job well done. I can say that. Uh, as I said before, in India, diplomacy excelled under pressure. I'll give three examples. And first, of course, is the Ukraine war, where India refused to fall in line with the West, condemning Russia. Any attempt on India's part to side with the US-led West on Ukraine would have inevitably pushed Russia deeper into the Chinese orbit, thus compromising India's own national as well as military interests. With regard to Ukraine, India also subtly pointed at the larger failure of American diplomacy. The US has lost a potential ally in Russia against the backdrop of growing Chinese hegemony. This has happened because of NATO's relentless expansion into Eastern Europe over past 3 decades. This eastward move has also been criticized by George F. Kennan, who was actually who authored the policy of containment of Soviet expansion during the Cold War. Kennan called it a fateful error of American policy. The Ukrainian war is a result of that eastward expansion of NATO. Had the US realized that the gravity of power shifted from Europe to Asia and that if China was the biggest threat, it wouldn't have pushed Moscow that hard. After all, Russia too has reason to be concerned with China spreading its wing in Central Asia, which Moscow traditionally regards as its strategic backyard. The second example is in the manner in which India has dealt with hegemonic China. The Modi government's handling of Xi Jinping, China has been quite measured and strong. Indian troops are standing face to face with the PLA for almost 4 years now, and China doesn't know how to come up of this stalemate. China, it seems, has eaten more than it can chew. But given the pretentious strongman image of Xi Jinping, China just can't afford to, walk out of the standoff. It can't be seen as a weaker nation. That will be the end of Xi Jinping if it does that. But through India, a message had definitely sent to the West and across the world on how to deal with China. The message is loud and clear that if there is one country that can stand up to Chinese bluff, it is New India. But most, for me, in fact, and though the list talked about success of Indian diplomacy is in Pakistan, we sometimes believe that the diplomacy is like you have to engage in talk, you have to talk to people, you have to engage with them every day. No, I'm sorry. Diplomacy is also about not talking to people when you're not required to talk. And this is what this government has done. There was time when Pakistan would occupy India's diplomatic mind space quite disproportionately. Every prime minister from Jawaharlal Nehru onwards would be swayed by the prospect of rewriting this India-Pakistan peace saga. Such was the obsessive fascination for talks that there was a pattern. Every new government would push for talks with Pakistan. This would be followed by a terror strike of one or the other. The two nations would then talk tough for a few months, followed by a fresh round of dialogue. All through nothing would change on ground, having the primary players remain the same. India and Pakistan never talked just for the sake of talking. In a way, the talks became an end in themselves. The obsession with Aman Ki Asha was such that no one would ask the most fundamental question, that what has actually changed, if any change on the ground, that we are talking to Pakistan. No one asked Vajpayee why he was inviting Musharraf, the chief architect of Kargil in Agra, within a few years of American perfect in 1999. One kept on talking to them. So that thing has stopped now. In fact, to be honest, even Modi government, Modi began his prime minister journey by this grand Pakistan overreach. But unlike the past, he learned from his mistakes. He mended his ways, especially post Pathankot. And after Uri and Balakot operations, India has put the accountability of terrorism on the country from where it emanates. By punishing Pakistan for terror originating elsewhere, India made its immediate western neighbor answerable for its acts of omission and commission. A new Lakshman Rekha was drawn, and politicians and generals of Pakistan suddenly realized that this particular line could not be crossed without repercussions. Is it therefore any surprise that most terror strikes took place in Indian cities? I remember in mid 2000s there would be terror strikes every week or every month at least. New Delhi, Ahmedabad, Varanasi, Mumbai, and that was also a time when India and Pakistan used to engage most in dialogues and discussions. So finally realized, India realized that Pakistan is like an errant child, who has been made to believe that by being wayward and mischievous, they can get whatever they want. I mean, in its short experience as a nation state, it only has been pampered by the West in the name of fighting terrorism and placated by India in the hope that it doesn't go rogue. Every concession became a further vindication for Pakistan that India and West can be bullied into conceding more. In fact, Pakistan's very DNA is made of anti-India blocs. The heroes of one are inevitably the villains of the other, and vice versa. No wonder Pakistan names most of its missiles after Qasim, Gori, and Ghazni. So what the government, the current government has done is, like, instead of exhausting synergies on Pakistan, it has focused instead on improving its ties with Arab and Gulf nations. The result has been nothing sort of spectacular. It may baffle foreign experts, but Arab and Gulf nations never had such a vibrant relationship with India as it is now with a quote-unquote Hindu majoritarian government. So in a time when the US may have weakened, but China's rise is still far from maturing, as Jaishankar writes in his book, The India Way, this geopolitical shift has created a new opportunities for countries like India. By the end of the 2020s, India is poised to become the third largest economy in the world, paving the way for multipolar world. Explaining the multipolar world, Jaishankar writes, what will emerge is a more complex architecture characterized by different degrees of competition, convergence, and coordination. It will be like playing expanded Chinese checkers, including with some who are still arguing over the rules. So if the 21st century has to be India's century, much of its foundation has to be laid now in the current decade and the next. And to the credit of the present dispensation, it has been doing a decent job on the front, however silent or critical the current left liberal ecosystem has been. So I will end my speech on this optimistic note. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Utpalji. This question is from Ankesh Bhati. She is again a research scholar, and she has written that what is the difference between Bharat and India?
Interesting question. Actually, India is, frankly speaking, a country which accumulates and assimilates everything. So, actually, in culture also, it is India that is Bharat. So, both Bharat and India is same, though we use it differently. But yeah, in the context how we see it, like Bharat is seen as something which is rural, which is kind of think with India in the sense that India is most seen from the Lutyens world,
So it's just a name, as they say. But in India, we accept differences. We accept diversity. So per se, there is no difference. You use India, you use Bharat the way you want to. It's one and the same. I prefer Bharat, and I believe that connects me with my India's civilizational ethos. But then that's a connect. Like, I studied in Northeast. I did my schooling in Nagaland. People there call themselves Indians. So fair enough. I mean, how comfortable you are.